So she presented me. This is Fatma from Tunisia. Thank you for inviting me here today to present. So I'm going to talk today about one of the most important issues that face educators at higher education and even in secondary and primary education is the digitization or digitalization in higher education and assessing the digital competence of educators. So this is what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to start with the introduction. In the introduction, I have to mention that with the digital age, we have nascent competences. These competences are necessary today, and all of us have to think of how to acquire these competences because they have become a must. So I start stating the problem here. In the digital context, we have technologies, new or a plethora of technologies that have entered our life and the working place. And we have also the pandemic and other epidemics that appeared in this era. So the problem that we face, how to educate in this new context. So there was the appearance of a paradigm change. So the paradigm change is focalized on digitization or digitalization of, because there is a slight difference, digitalization of education. The nascent competence that I'm going to talk about today is digital competence for educators, and it should be passed to learners. And the problem is how to test this digital competence. Well, the answer came first from the European framework for the digital competence of educators, which was epitomized in the Selfie tool, which is a platform in which so many schools can enroll and test or evaluate their digital competence, not only of the institution, but the management, the teachers, and the students, and the learning process as a whole. And then there was a problem with the higher education. So many researchers started developing surveys. One of these surveys is the DigiGlow that I'm going to use today. Now, first of all, before I move to the methodology that I have used, I have to introduce digital competence to understand what does it mean. So according to the European Digital Competence Framework, digital competence involves the confident and I think I'm sharing. So Yosra, are you? Can you see my slides, please? If you are hearing me. Yosra, unmute yourself, please, and answer me. Can you see my slides?
No, Fatma, no.
I'm afraid we cannot see your presentation.
Here it says sharing. Slide. So I stop sharing and share it again. Do you see my slides, Yosra?
No.
Sharing. Sharing. I don't know. So communicate with me, please. So Faisal, I send you the link to my presentation. Can you share it in the chat room if you are hearing me now? Yesterday I sent you the link. Can you just diffuse the link in the chat box? Okay, so I'm going to do this. So please, followers or attendees, there is the link in the chat box. Please open it and follow with me if they cannot share it. So I have shared. So Yosra, can you just click on this and try to see if the link is working? Okay, so I shared it with Faisal. So I'm going to go back to where I was. So share again. So I think I am in slide 5 now. If you are, Yosra, can you see slide 5?
I will check and tell you, Fatma. Just wait, please. No. No, I don't see Fatma. I clicked on the link, but it doesn't work. I'll try again and tell you, okay?
So I'm going to carry on. So please, if you are following me, go to slide 5. I'm introducing digital competence. So I'm going to. I'm going
Fatma,
to.
do you hear me? Fatma?
Yes.
Yes, it is working now. I can see your the title of your presentation. It is working.
Okay, so I'm in slide 5, please. Digital
Yes, it's okay.
Yes. So I resume. So digital competence involves the confident and critical use of information society technology. As we know, all information society is or was set up in 2025. It's a convention in Geneva in which all countries have agreed to use digital technology in work, leisure, communication, and it is underpinned by basic skills in ICT. So here everyone or in the digital society or people have to use computers to retrieve, access or assess, restore, produce, present and exchange information, and to communicate and participate in collaborative networks via the internet. So this is just the introduction. So I'm going to move to the methods that I'm going to apply today. I applied in my research. So the first is it's a questionnaire. It's developed. It's called the DigiGlow. It's developed by 3 researchers from Spain. So they have used the 6 areas from the European framework, and they added 2 other areas. They saw that there is a gap in them. The first one is the area is professional engagement. That means teachers, if they want to be digitally competent, they have to use digital technology in professional engagement in their institutions and for professional collaboration and reflective practice and professional development like as we do today, but things are not working very well today, but I think we managed to do it. So the second area is digital resources. So digital resources here means using digital resources in education. It's not about technology. It's about pedagogy, how to implement digital technology into learning and teaching in order to reach the objectives of learning process. And the third area is teaching and learning itself. That means scenarios, teaching strategies that are used in teaching, and guidance of the students, how to guide them using digital technology, for example, whether you are in class or you are not in class, synchronously or asynchronously, and how to create collaborative learning environments, and to help students self-regulate their learning using different technologies. The most important here is assessment, because many teachers find problem in assessment. So many say that they do not have well-developed digital competence in implementing assessment using digital technologies. So here we are speaking about both formative and summative assessment. So if you have any questions about this later, empowering learners and facilitating learners' digital competence here, it's about both about the digital competence of the students. That means the transfer of the knowledge that we received in our training, and helping students to use digital technology in learning, and most importantly, make sure that your students are included. That means they have the technology, they know how to use it and to achieve learning. And the two areas that were added here are digital environment and extrinsic digital engagement, which these researchers focused that the environment is a problem, because usually we have the problem of digital divide between countries, between areas, between schools, between institutions. Digital environment is the existence of the environment itself, digital environment for training, for teaching, for assessment, and extrinsic digital engagement is related to maintaining, repair, because sometimes the environment is there but it's not functional, so teachers should know how to deal with this. So the results of my research, so the demographic data, I implemented this survey at the University of Carthage to 103 university teachers took part in this survey. So the age range, as you can see here, I'm going to go a little bit fast because I think I have passed the time because of the problems we have. So the survey was implemented in English, and as you can see here, 39% were men, and only 31.7 of higher education students at my university, teachers in my university, said that they have high digital competence. That means we still have problems. My first question here, does it relate to the grades of the educators? Yes. So as you can see here, I have the most important cohort of the participants from assistant professors and others, and this will affect the results of my research. So first of all, will digital competence differ by area? Yes, the results of my research have shown yes, that as you can see here, for teaching and learning, the teachers have higher digital competence, but we still have lacks in assessment, in digital environment and extrinsic digital engagement. We have also a problem in digital resources. The second question is whether there will be a difference between competences by areas. So here, as you can see, the most developed area is the pedagogy, because teachers were thinking of improving pedagogies and using digital technologies, and these are covered by area 2, 3, and 4. The problem was also with professional competence, digital professional competence and the digital environment. So these two problems, we have to think how to improve them in the future. The next question, will digital competence differ based on grades? So this is the question that I have asked first. Yes, I have to focus here on two most important things. As you can see here in the middle, the ASP, that means assistant professors, were the more balanced they have more balanced competence. For professors, they have here the issue of not using digital resources and digital technology in professional engagement. And the second problem at this research is in the temporary and other, because at the university where I work, we have a lot of temporary teachers, and they do not have access to digital environment for teaching. This has resulted in a low digital competence in these areas. So digital competence by age, as you can see here, the age 43 and 53 educators have most balanced digital competency. And here goes to the professional development. So these teachers have the right to attend many sessions that are organized by the university, or sometimes they do this by themselves. So the problem here with the new educators, they don't have access to digital environment and also digital professional development. So the research here was good. It gave us good results, but it still has some limitations. In the sampling, for example, future research should consider other regions like national or international, comparing results, because we have to see whether the digital divide can affect these results and how we can remedy this. And the method too that I used is it's not mixed. So next time I can use mixed with interviews. I can interview teachers and students, etc., to see what is the problem and if they are facing challenges and how to deal with these challenges. So in my conclusion, so I say that professors should work on enhancing the use of digital resources. Temporary teachers should have more access to professional development, and institutions leaders should work on transforming their institutions to create digitally friendly learning environments. So here we still have problems of the environment, which is not really appropriate to have high digital competence for educators. And future perspectives, and here we have to think of trying to find a correlation between educator digital competence and student digital competence, because my research showed that teachers who have higher digital competence can improve or can empower their students, but it's not really statistically significant. So we have to check whether there is a correlation, and short-term and long-term effects of educator digital competence and student digital competence can be followed through long-term research to see whether we are improving, and if we have plans, whether they are working or not. And the third one is challenges educators face in building their digital competencies. And this, as I said, can be understood when we check the educator's perspective. Okay, these are the references that I have used, and thank you very much. This is Fatma from Tunisia, and I'm really sorry for the technical issues that we had today. So I'm going to stop sharing. Now I stopped sharing, so if anyone yes, thank you, dear Faisal. Thank you everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry I can't hear you. I don't know what's the problem here. So Faisal, if someone else is going to start, please inform me, because Yosra, can you hear me? Yosra, I can't hear you. Unmute yourself, please. Yosra, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Yosra. Yusra, if you are hearing me, so please contact the chat box. Yusra?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Yosra, yes.
Okay, thank God. I'm going to start. Faisal, can you hear me and start please sharing the slides? Okay. Hi again. I'm Yosra Sellami. I'm a doctor of applied linguistics, and my presentation for today is titled "Phases and Limitations of Online Education in the 21st Century." So my presentation for today includes the following items: introduction, definition of online education, stating the roles of learners and instructors in an online environment during the 4 phases of engagement, limitations of online education discussion, stating some recommendations, conclusion, and references. So now we move to the slide of introduction, please. The next slide, please. As we all know, in 2020, COVID-19 pandemic affected the degree of educational efficiency worldwide. The United Nations reported that the pandemic affected nearly 0.6 billion learners in more than 190 countries and all continents. Closures of schools and other learning spaces have impacted 94% of the world's student population. As a reaction to educational disruptions, governments all over the world resorted to cut off with face-to-face instruction and adopted online alternatives. So, consequently, a reshuffle of teachers and learners functions takes place, and the use of technological devices such as iPads and computers becomes the medium of communication between teacher and between students themselves. So the teaching learning process moved from a teacher-centered approach to a learner-centered approach, which is the major premise upon which the online distance learning environment is based. This signals a move from deductive to interactive constructivist approaches. Now we move, please, to the next slide, and here absolutely we need a definition of online education. So it refers to internet-based learning that delivers content and enables communication between instructor and students. It is rooted in the transaction of distance education and advanced computers and communication technology. Nowadays, the rapid and easy access to the internet worldwide paves the way for online teaching and learning to take place either through a learning management system such as Blackboard or Canvas, or through video-based conferencing systems such as Zoom or WebEx. Next, please, next slide. It seems evident that computers and the internet are the cornerstones upon which online education is based. Indeed, learners are geographically separated from the instructor, and the instruction is delivered totally through the computer. Online courses are delivered by researchers and scholars under different terminologies such as e-learning, internet learning, distributed learning, network learning, virtual learning, or web-based learning. In the same vein, Shelton and Saltzman 2005 stated that the terms online education, distance education, web-based instruction, online learning, distance learning, distributed learning, and to some extent e-learning are used synonymously. Now we move to the slide including the roles of learners and instructors in an online environment during the 4 phases of engagement. And before starting, it is worthy to mention that the information in this section is taken from the framework developed in 2011 by Conard and Donaldson. So the first 2 weeks are part of phase 1, when the learner is supposed to be a newcomer and the instructor a social negotiator. This is some sort of introductory sessions where learners are helped by the teacher to get acquainted with one another. The step of getting to know one another will facilitate the content and the contact between instructors and learners and between learners themselves. So setting up the first phase effectively paves the way for success for the rest of the online engagement phases. Now we move to the 3rd and 4th weeks, which belong to the 2nd phase, where the instructor plays the role of structural engineer who organizes and facilitates the growth of learners as cooperators. The instructor provides learners with tasks that require critical thinking, reflection, sharing of ideas, such as, for example, peer reviews and activity critics. The assumption here is that the instructor integrates best practices and activities in teaching and thus involves more and more learners in their learning plans. Next slide, please. So after 4 weeks of online education, learners are supposed to be comfortable enough with technology-mediated communication to pass to the third phase of engagement, which is composed from weeks 5 and 6. Here, the instructor is a facilitator and learners are collaborators. Interactions in this phase are not only one way from the teacher to the students as in the first 2 phases, that is from one to many, but also and often between the students themselves. So teachers learn to vanish, so to speak, and let students organize the activity, work on it, and as a result, collaborate and assign roles for everyone. During the 4th and final phase of online engagement, which ranges from the 7th to the 60th week, learners become initiators and partners, while teachers become members of the learning community and challengers. As a matter of fact, during the three previous phases, students will have developed a learning toolbox which there is a problem in their learning, including self-driven and the ability to self-learn. However, there is no denying that teachers play their role in helping students maximize their self-learning or expand learning potential. Indeed, the skills that make up autonomous learning are skills. Now we move to the next slide, please. So, having students with self-sufficiency attitude plays a towering role in how much they can learn. Paloff and Pratt state that when the instructor sets the stage appropriately, the virtual student begins to understand that his or her individual learning process depends on the participation and commitment of other students in the group. Teachers can encourage students to be self-initiating, provide them with the choices about learning, allow them to solve problems independently, avoid asserting authority and control over them. So applying such autonomy supportive teaching practices leads to increasing students' intrinsic motivation to be engaged in the academic activities. For teachers to make the point that they involve students in the learning process through learner-centered activities indicates at a minimum that they are aware of the centrality of the learner in the learning process. It also highlights that they go the extra mile and make it specifically clear to students that they are at the center. This is akin to creating a noticing environment where the instructor designs learning activities that students perform, and they also tell their students why they are engaging in this activity. Students learn to use each other as valuable and valid sources of knowledge, and they learn to present themselves and each other as such. This is a far cry from the situation where knowledge is vertically presented in a top-down fashion. Students learn that they two together constitute loci of knowledge and they can collaborate to elaborate a vision that represents their understanding. Now we move to the slide of limitations of online education. So we move please to the next slide. Faisal, please move to the next slide. Yes, and despite the fact that effective design of online courses promotes high quality of learning, it has some limitations which can be referred to as barriers in the sense that they can be removed with appropriate action and insight from leadership with the institution itself. Martin and Kumar in 2020 examined the barriers of online education and classified them into 4 main types, namely institutional barriers, technology and technological barriers, pedagogical barriers, and interpersonal barriers. So institutional barriers involve lack of administration support, lack of resources for course design and development, lack of incentives and recognition, online teaching not valued for promotion and tenure, limited knowledge and copyright of electronic materials, lack of evaluation instruments for online teaching, lack of policies or standards for online courses. The technology and technological barriers involve lack of training on technology skills, frequent technical problems, lack of technical support, rapidly changing software or delivery systems, concern of access to students' privacy and security concerns. Move please to the next slide, including the pedagogical barriers, which are lack of training on online teaching, lack of instructional desire for online learning, creating accessible instructional material, perception of quality in online courses, increased time for grading and feedback, poorly designed online courses. The last type of barriers involve lack, which is interpersonal ones, and it involves lack of personal relationship with the students and faculty motivation, resistance to innovation, personal anxiety with online technologies, lack of peer interaction, and student self-regulation in completing activities. So we move to discussion. Here we need some sort of discussion. Faisal, please move to the next slide. And it sounds evident that from the four barriers I have just stated, that online education, there exist two types of instructions and educational administrators and two types of learners as well. For instance, the lack of incentives and recognition, the online teaching not valued for promotion and tenure, the lack of training on technology skills, the lack of training on online teaching, lack of instructional design for online learning, the resistance to innovation and personal anxiety with online technologies contribute to having teachers and educational administrators who prefer the traditional teaching mode to the online in commitment. This is actually evidenced by Simonson 2017, whose recent study to educational administrators revealed that the majority of them had been engaged to learning and teaching only traditionally. In addition to considering courses presented in a traditional setting are of high quality than online courses. The Inside Higher Ed claims in its recent report on the status of online education that a vast majority of faculty members agree that traditional courses are better in achieving equivalent learning outcomes than online courses. The same report stated that only 1 out of 3 professors have taught an online course and that 1 out of 5 administrators have taken an online course. Move please to the next slide. So referring back to learners, it can be concluded that we have two types. We have those who are dependent learners who expect their full learning experience to be mediated and organized by the teacher, and they are satisfied with the curriculum learning activities provides. And we have learners who are independent and who are self-motivated. These students take a charge of their learning tasks and consider themselves responsible for their own learning. So move on, please, because of time constraints to the conclusion. Faisal, please move to the conclusion. Yes, there is no need to read the recommendations because of time constraints. We move on to the conclusion, please. So the strongest statement of online education is that practice is no longer anchored in classist behaviorist tendencies where teachers lead and students follow. In this sense, many teachers' job consists in delivering learning with students would absorb that learning as coming from the sage on the stage. Instead, teachers' new role is of being a guide on the side. So I think that the better thing to say in my conclusion is that teachers play pivotal roles either in being sages on the stage or in being guides on the side. Overall, teachers do not only facilitate learning but also change learners' emotions, that is to say, who they are and their cognitions, what they know, and that is the hidden curriculum for teachers. And this is actually what makes teaching a special profession. Now, these are two slides including references from which information in this article are taken from. And at the end, I want to thank you very much for your attention, and your questions are welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yusra. It was good.
Thank,
Thank you.
thank you.
Saoussen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
They said you can start, Saoussen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think it took forever for me to present. I'm not the kind of person who reads the slides, so for this presentation, I'm not gonna say what the one researcher says and what the other says. Um, Today, I will talk about something vivid or the very similitude of an exchange program and its importance in boosting the future of students, or more specifically, Omani students. So, this presentation is sponsored, of course, by University of Technology and Applied Sciences, as well as by US Embassy in Muscat, MEPI, and Fulbright. A brief introduction of myself. I'm a lecturer of English at the Higher Institute of Health and Medical Techniques. I'm a Fulbright alumni with US Embassy. I'm a neurolinguistic programming practitioner. I'm a CEC organizer and trainer, researcher in trauma theories, and former researcher at Sorbonne University, past 3. These are some of my classes this year. This was a wonderful course I delivered for Royal Oman Police, and this was the exchange program in the United States with my fellows across the country. So it will be divided into 3 main sections: introduction to abroad programs, introduction to local programs, and tips for a successful application. So the first one, what does it mean, exchange program? Because of time constraints, I'm afraid we cannot share our opinions, so we'll move straight. So for me, it's a reciprocal travel program in which students visit each other's countries for the sake of enlightenment and inspiration. It's a liminal zone for dialogic interchange of languages, cultures, speech communities, ethnicities, races, linguistic repertoires, social competencies, soft skills, and shaping identities. These are some idioms as well. And then this is the United States, of course. It's in the north of the American continent. And then we will start with number 1, study in the US or in the USA. How a student can get a scholarship or a grant to study in the USA. First of all, The main source is education, this website, Education USA, and there is already a bureau in Muscat, Education USA at US Embassy Muscat. You can pay a visit, as well as you can check the official website. So there is a financial aid, which is shaped in the form of application fee waivers for Education USA advices at the Rice University. And what is interesting is that there is no deadline. And then there is Omani government scholarship program for bachelor's program, and the deadline is by June. And this is sponsored by Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation. There are some special programs like Oman Government Scholarship Program for undergraduate students. And then we have the National Program for postgraduate students. For example, this one, there are 111 master's degree grants, 39 PhD, and 59 medical programs. And the deadline will be in June, same as the Oman Government Scholarship Program. Moving on to the exchange programs. There is the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study. Yes, this is for high school students. Then we have the Fortune U.S. Department of State Global Women's Mentoring Partnership, which the period is 3 weeks. Moving on to, yes, the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study. Yes, and then we have the study of the U.S. institutes, SUSIs. It is known as SUSIs. This one for scholars. So scholars, they travel to the United States for 6 weeks, and they exchange their academic skills with other American scholars. Still, there is another one, SUSIs, for students, and it is designed for undergraduate students, leaders, to improve their understanding of the United States and to develop their leadership skills in the following topics. These are very interesting topics like the civic engagement and social entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. Moving on to the sports visitors program, which is mainly addressed to young athletes and coaches. Then we have the Fulbright Foreign Language Teaching Assistant. This is known as FLTA. This is a wonderful opportunity for Omani students where they can teach the Arabic language in an American university for 1 full academic year. Moving on to the International Writing Program, full residency. These are for students who are skilled in writing. And then we have the Fulbright Scholar in Residence Program. So the length ranges from 3 months to 1 full academic year. And then we have the Fulbright Foreign Student Program. So this offers graduate students and young professionals from abroad to study and research at US institutions for 1 year or even longer. But holding a degree is essential here. Then we have the Fulbright Visiting Scholar Program, which is administered by the Council for International Exchange of Scholars. Now moving on to local programs. We have the International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP, through short-term visits to the United States. Current and emerging foreign leaders in a variety of fields experience this country firsthand. So the basic skill to be learned or to be sharpened is the leadership. Moving on to the Critical Language Scholarship Program, which take place in the United States during summers. So there will be an interchange of languages and to build everlasting relationships between the people of the United States and the people of Oman. Moving on to the International Visitor Leadership Program, which is as well a professional exchange program, and there will be short-term visits to the United States. Now, tips for a successful application. How can you know that your application is successful? So the SWOT analysis, this is basically a business analysis, but it is very useful. So it is, you need to divide yourselves into four main parts. The first one is the strengths. What are your areas of success in order to develop it? Then we have the opportunities. Where are your best fitting shots? But after knowing your weaknesses, or you need to ask yourself, what are your flaws? Or which traits I need to develop it or I need to improve it. Moving on to the fourth part and last part of this SWOT analysis, which is the threats. What can hit hard your success? So this is the roadmap from Oman to the United States. The first one is information about the program, which means the details, the eligibility, and how to apply. Now, the second one is information about the selection criteria. Now, this is very important before you need to know what they are looking for before applying or before applying to any exchange program. You need to match what they need about your references. You need to ask your teachers or your lecturers to write recommendation letters for you. Moving on to the fourth one, which is the online application, then you need to make a level test English. In other sense, you need to test your proficiency in English. So some exchange programs do not require level test English, like the IELTS or the TOEFL or anyone else. But still, you need to know your level of English for the sake of smooth communication and successful exchange program. Well, this one requires. So this is the funnel, which summarizes everything. So the student should be, or the fellow, or the future Fulbright alumni need to have these four basic traits, which are to be engaged doer, to be inclusive leader, to be inquisitive mind, to be mission-driven collaborator, to be humane mindset, to have humane mindset, and to be ambitious demagogue. So, so why the study in the U.S.? There is someone, a Omani student. Her name is Kauthar Al-Habsi. She got admission into Michigan State University, and this is what she said. She said, what I loved about MSU was the size and all the different departments that were there. So she was fascinated by the flexibility of course requirements, the professors who always give a hand for anything, and she said, reaching out to me to break boundaries and to understand my culture more. So there was no cultural or social or linguistic limitations. This leads to how can exchange programs foster the career, which is the basic or the main part, the main point of this presentation. First of all is the high national and international accreditation, which means the academic excellence. Moving on to the flexibility of educational system, which leads to more liberty for students to pursue what they want, or to what their passions for. Moving on to the supportive orientation for international students, which means responsive queries. And last thing, which is the international exposure to and cultural diversity, which leads to the multinational background and to promoting as well the critical thinking. Other four parts or other four benefits of exchange programs, which is the sharpening of skills needed for the international market, the personality growth, the maturity reaching, and the humanity engendering, the achievement of international education and multicultural understanding, and last thing, which is the precision of future trajectory and aim attainment. As a conclusion, exchange program is a way to unify different cultures, societies, and languages into one enigmatic, aesthetic entity. Or this is my point of view, which is education is not about just the grades. Education is about the exchange of languages, the exchange of cultures, to widen your understanding about the world and to be a successful future leader, future student, and future worker. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for UTAS staffs, Mr. Faisal, the moderators, and thank you for my co-presenters.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions? Please, if there are any, please write them in the chat box because we can't hear anyone, unfortunately.
Fatma, do you hear me, please?
I hear you. I'm just looking at the meeting chat. If there are any questions, we're still receiving thanks. So people are thanking you for. So it seems there are no questions. So, and then, so if there are no questions, thank you. So we can wait a little bit if there are any questions. Thank you very much. So English language teaching Faisal and Rabia say thank you to everyone. I think there is a question from Abdullah. What about CPD opportunity for teachers? I think the question is for you, Yosra, or anyone? No, Susan?
I don't talk about CPD.
Not Yosra, sorry, Susan. Saoussen? What about CPD opportunities for teachers? About them, just remind them about what you have said.
About CPD for teachers?
Yes.
Just a second, I need to go back.
I think Susie's, you said there is a program called Susie's for teachers?
Yes, yes, it is. Yes. Let me go back. CPD program? I did not mention this, I think. Yeah. I didn't mention it. But CPD depends on the country. So not all exchange programs are available or to all countries. It depends on your own country. You need to find out your eligibility. can apply.
So there is another question for you again. Is there a link or website where we can apply for exchange program? So can you send the link on the chat, please?
Yes, so as you know, U.S. Embassy has its own bureau in different countries in the world. So what you need to do is to Google U.S. Embassy and to write down your own country. That's how you know which programs you are allowed to apply.
Mhm.
Just click on U.S. Embassy and write down the country, your own country.
Yeah, I have something for Evangeline. So there is something called eligibility. So if your country is eligible, you are allowed to. If you are not eligible,
Um,
because some countries today, please, would you mind using your mic, please?
so yeah.
Yeah, I said it's a matter of eligibility because some countries like Syria now, so Syrians are not eligible to the United States. So you have to check the country, as Susan
I'm
said.
afraid there are some exchange program for students. There are exchange programs for everyone, but it depends from one exchange program to another. Like for Tunisians, there are other exchange programs along with these exchange programs.
Good. Thank you very for the information. That was good.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are any questions. No. I think Faisal and Rabia said thank you very much and bye. I remember seeing this. Let me check first. Yes.
If anyone needs further information about exchange program, feel free to reach me out. And thank you so much for your for your presence.
Thank you, Saoussen.